Hello everyone, welcome to our, what month is this? April meet and greet. How many of you, is this your first meet and greet? Only one? Wow, so you all came back. Great to hear, and welcome you to our your first one. So just to give you all an overcap again, so the I Am a Woman in STEM initiative, there's like 4 components to it, and it's all about empowering women and helping you all to keep pursuing your STEM careers. So there is the mentoring program. I see some of you all are sitting with your mentors, so that's great that both of you all were able to come. So we want to provide you all with a positive role model in STEM so that you can want to continue on in STEM as well yourself. And then also there is the meet and greets that we have. So those are once a month for you all to be able to come together and see one another and discuss things that you've been talking about with your mentor. If you're participating in the service learning course, that as well. So those are 2 of the fun things that we do with I Am a Woman in STEM.
And the other 2 things are, there's a service learning course where we meet with a facilitator and we learn about the different obstacles that women face and different ways that we can navigate them. And then there's also the service learning project that everyone is a part of, where we're doing different projects to bring awareness to the lack of women in STEM here at UK.
Can you all introduce each other?
Oh yeah, I forgot to do the introduction part. Sorry, I'm not a great public speaker. But my name's Shelby Albers. You all have probably seen me up here talking before. I'm one of the student leaders on the project, and this is Kate Collins. She's another student leader. In the room with us, we also have Dr. Randolph Hollingsworth, who helped kind of get this project started. We also have Kate Eddins, Sue Chef, and then Tushani was around here somewhere. I can't remember. I think she had to make a phone call, but she's here too. And there are plenty of other people who've been a part in making this project happen. And of course, you all are a part of it as well. So, I mean, congratulate yourselves on that as well. This is our last and final meet and greet, and we have a
Madushi.
Oh yeah, Madushi, one of our service learning course facilitators. She's here with us as well.
Brittany Rice. Brittany Rice.
Brittany Rice. Oh, so this is your first time? Yeah, great. Okay. Well, we have an awesome speaker lined up for you all tonight, and Dr. Fatemi is going to introduce her.
Great. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Pamela Marcum today. So we are very lucky to get some of her time. We do not work in the same area, physics. She looks at big things, I look at small things. But one of my colleagues, Dr. Gary Furlan, had the bright idea to invite her, and then he said, oh, she's fantastic. She's a native Kentuckian who has gone on to study and do research all across the country. She did her undergraduate work at the Florida Institute of Technology, got an undergrad degree and a master's degree in space science and physics, went on to get her PhD at the University of Wisconsin, then moved on to UVA, Wahoo-Wah. That's, I went to UVA, so we have to do that. It's just like required, it's like a joke. And so she did a postdoc. Actually, we figured out we overlapped, and sadly, passing in the night, we didn't even know each other then. And then she went on to become a professor at the, Texas Christian University, right? And then she left there to go work at NASA several times, right? So you went for a 3-year stint first, and then she came back, and of course they figured out they couldn't live without her, and so now she's the SOFIA project scientist. Now, like I said, I'm probably not doing her bio justice, but I think the point is that she's been very involved in a lot of different areas of research in astronomy, and I think she's sort of the epitome of what of how we can learn to navigate in our own respective fields. So even though she could talk, and we'll talk about science tonight, if you want to come to the Sky Talk at 8 p.m., ooh, physics building. But here she's going to be talking a lot about her personal experience and navigating her way through a STEM field as a woman. So I just want to thank you for taking time out of her very, very busy schedule to talk to us. So let's just welcome Dr. Pamela Marcum.
Well, thank you very much, Renee, for that very nice introduction. It's so good to be back in my home state. I grew up on the east side of the state in the Appalachian Mountains. I'm sure that some of my background will be familiar to some of you, and I hope that what some of my messages are today are applicable. You can find, everyone in here can find something to relate to. That's my goal for tonight, actually, is to try to impart some of my I don't want to say hard-earned lessons learned. They were earned hard because I failed many times and learned what actually works. It's always nice when you can poke around in someone's brain who has gone through that process to get perhaps some useful words of wisdom for your own life. So I've kind of taken the approach of, what would I say to Pam Marcum, 18 years old, you know? So we're gonna step back in time and I'm gonna have a conversation with myself a little bit here, but I hope that you draw something from it. Well, my talk today has nothing to do with astronomy, although we can go that way. I should start off by saying I see this as a very interactive discussion. I can talk for 30 minutes. Please don't make me do that. I would really love interruptions, because I think that's where this kind of a group meeting gets really interesting and you get the most out of it. And I've done something to help facilitate that, but there's the old-fashioned way as well. Before I get started though, this is the NASA mission that I'm involved in. And if you want to hear more about it, come to the public talk tonight or come to the physics colloquium tomorrow. I am the NASA SOFIA project scientist for a mission that is dedicated to infrared astronomy. And what it is an old plane that was acquired from Pan Am and then United by NASA some time ago in the mid to late 90s. And a lot of engineering went into cutting that big hole out and allowing this plane to still fly. You wouldn't dream of getting in the plane and flying safely with a big hole the size that this one is, but the engineering is fantastic and it flies wonderfully and we're getting great science out of it. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm just dangling a little teaser, and if you come to tonight's public session, you'll learn a lot more about SOFIA. Of course, if you want to go in that direction, I'm happy to entertain questions about that as well. Well, I first want to get started in the spirit of interaction, right? You don't want to hear me. You've been in classes all day long. You don't want to see another PowerPoint presentation, but we'll go there if you make me. So what I've done, because I'm kind of slow at embracing new technology, but recently I learned the wonders of Google Doc. I kind of known about it for a long time. My postdoc's been trying to tell me about it. I'm like, yeah. But I was involved in a review of one of the NASA missions recently. And we used Google Doc to put together our review, our written evaluation, and I was amazed that everyone could kind of like work on it at the same time, and it was very collaborative. And I know there's other formats, you could do Twitter, but everyone can see Twitter. I wanted something sort of semi-private. So I don't know if you got the link that got sent out to you or not, and I don't even know if you have the ability to get to a browser or not, but now is the time you are allowed and encouraged to pull out your iPhone or any other smartphone you might have on your person. And that's a lot to type, and if you didn't get an email with the link that you could just kind of click on, I apologize, but that is the link that you can go to. And what you're going to see, and if I could ask someone to kind of monitor the Google page, and as questions come up, if you could literally just say, hey Pam, there's a question about, and the question, so it's a way to pose questions as they occur to you, and I don't care if they have zero to do with what I'm talking about, right? I want you to lead me into the directions that would be most helpful for you. It's all about you tonight, guys, gals. All right. So maybe I should just hold that on there. You can even take a picture of the screen to capture, the link if you need it. Does anyone need me to keep that there for one more second? Raise your hand. Okay. I'll just. Yeah. Well, while you're typing that in, and I hope everyone has editing permission. I think Renee and I kind of worked that out at the last minute earlier today. And again, it's a free flow. Just feel free to write whatever you wish. My journey. So I'm going to start out by talking a little bit about how I got to where I am, because it's not a linear path. And I always thought I was the oddball, you know, like going from point A to point B. Everyone, surely, as as a freshman in college, you know exactly where you're going to end up and you're going to be there forever, right? No. And, you know, once I got into this position and talking with other people, I realized that everyone that I work with seemed to have a somewhat, well, non-linear path in going from A to point B. And that made me feel a lot better. And that's probably the primary message I want to convey to you all, to not stress over planning it all out to the last detail, because things are going to probably change anyway. So I'm going to take you through that journey. And if you didn't get the link, just let me know later and I'll put it back on. And I'm counting on Renee to let me know if there's questions that come up. So this is the view of when you start off, right? There's a straight path and it's a well-known route to get from point A to point B. I figured out fairly early on that I wanted to be either a physicist or an astronomer. I wasn't quite sure which, and I figured out, you know, I could figure that out in grad school. But for the most part, this is kind of how I envisioned my career. I figured I'd end up in academia, teaching classes, doing research. And that's kind of the route that I thought I was going to follow. The reality was more like that. And in fact, if I would have had time, I would have inserted somewhere there, you know, a road sign that had many different paths. One of the things that I've learned is that when you go off on a different direction, it opens up a whole new realm of possibilities. And it's a very non-linear process, really, if you want it to be. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Before I get started, let's talk about where my journey started. I grew up in a little town. I just looked it up, population 2,500. So I think they've accumulated 500 people since the early 80s when I left the town. And it's located in Lawrence County, right on the Big Sandy River, in the foothills of the Appalachians. And at the time that I was a student there, I'm not going to say that it was an easy path to even figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. There were examples of, I remember talking to my high school counselors, and I think they handed me a book which had universities with astronomy programs. So I didn't get very far with that. Back in that day, there were no AP classes to take. I didn't have a physics class. I graduated second in my class, so I thought I was pretty damn smart. I ended up at Florida Tech, and my first year there was a big eye-opener. I had a lot of failures, literally and figuratively, in that first year, and learned many different things. I learned that there's no place for arrogance, thinking that you are the top dog. You may be the biggest fish in a small pond, but when you relocate to the ocean, you're just one of the shrimps swimming around, right? So there was some humility that I learned. I also learned, well, I'm actually getting into my talk, so let me advance this a little bit. So I just kind of wanted to show you where I came from, and so let's just kind of go through this. I'm going to get back to the whole thing I was just talking about in a minute. One of the first things that I learned was that you really have to be obsessively committed to where you want to go and the responsibilities that entails. Even if at the end of the day, where you think you want to go isn't where you end up, you've got to grab it and be absolutely passionate about it. I was just talking to a student earlier today who was debating, and maybe this is on your brain as well, debating whether grad school was for them or not. So I asked a couple of questions, to try to get to know the person a little bit better. And what I told this individual was, if you go the graduate route, you really, really have to be committed to it, because a PhD is not an easy path. And you're going to be 5, 6, 7, 8 years behind people who are already out in the job force after getting a bachelor's degree, who choose to just bypass a PhD and go straight, to the workforce. And there's certainly excellent jobs in either direction, right? I've worked with students who stopped at the bachelor's degree level in astronomy or physics, and they went on to work on space missions. And that's another point that I don't think I make explicitly here, and that is, as a woman in a STEM career, you are prepared to tackle the world. You have got skill sets that will allow you to go anywhere you want to go, but you have to be committed to what you're doing. And make sure that the job that you do is something that will attract mentors and people who are above you in the management level that can help open doors for you down the road. You've got to leave a good impression by your work ethic, and I think that's all I need to say about that. The second is, be flexible and fearless enough to take advantage of unexpected career opportunities. And this is where I start going this way on my own career path. Okay, so up until I got to Texas Christian University as a professor, I was sort of on a traditional path. I did my undergraduate work, I did my graduate PhD work, and I did a postdoc for 2 years, and then I got the faculty position. I got tenure, and everything was very comfortable. I could have been there for the rest of my career. One day, I got something in my email that was an announcement for opportunities as a visiting scientist at NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. I was afraid to apply because I wasn't sure. Well, it was well outside of my realm of experience. All I had ever done was teach classes. I'd never managed programs, certainly not multi-million-dollar programs. I'd never run review panels and all the skills that were required for that job. And I'm not quite sure what led me to throw my application in, but I believe it was that very same day I had received word back from a grant proposal that I was really hoping to get funded, and it didn't. And I was in a really rotten mood. And I won't utter the phrases that I have uttered, but I said, yeah, we're just gonna apply to this, And there's more to the story though. So I applied to this job, worried that whether or not I had the skill sets. But it turned out the people on the other side who were evaluating my application, one of them knew me really well. We had crossed paths before. And little did I know when I was a little, beginning graduate student that someday this person that I interacted with would be my boss. So networking is super, super important. And I'm going to hone in on that at the very end of my presentation. The more contacts you make, the more opportunities may come to you, because mentors, and you know about mentors, that's what this is all about. The mentors help open the doors, or at least alert you to the fact that there is a door there. Now, the thing is, having the courage to walk through the door, right? You're going to doubt yourself. I think as women, that's our, I will only speak for myself, but that's my very first impulse, is to think, I'm not sure I can do that. Ignore that evil voice in your head. Go for it. What's the worst that could happen, right? I have had lots of failures in my life. I'm not even going to list some of them. I'll talk to you offline if you care to hear about them. Adventures that didn't quite work out the way I'd hoped. But unless you walk through the doors that look exciting to you, you'll never know what's on the other side. And actually, as I was contemplating whether or not to take that job, what actually inspired me to take it at the end of the day, even though I was really worried I didn't know how to do anything that this job entailed, was when I'm, really old and looking back on my life, what regrets am I going to have? And that was one of the biggest regrets. I don't want to look back and say, oh my gosh, why didn't I explore that? So I often said to my students, life is like a candy shop, and you're only allowed to walk into the entrance and go out the exit, and you can't meander, you just gotta grab things as you're going out the door. So, and I still feel kind of like that, right? So life is an opportunity, make the most of it. All right, so that was a lot to say about the fearless and be flexible and consider changing your mind or getting out of your comfort zone every now and then. As women, that's really, really hard for us to do. Well, we're all in the STEM, and one of the things that I learned going back to my undergraduate experience was that, you know, science is inherently a collaborative field. I used to think it was, when I first started out, that it was a weakness to ask for help or to act like I didn't know that I didn't know the answer. I was extremely shy. Part of it was probably my background. I'm the first generation student in my family. You know, I think some of that is probably, again, it comes with the gender, where we tend to be a little bit introverted. Ultimately, though, I got where I got because I allowed people to help me, and now I freely accept the help. I still have mentors, even at my age and in my position in the career. People are looking out for me, and I consider and appreciate their wisdom. And you know, in fact, some of the opportunities that I've taken advantage of probably wouldn't have happened if my mentors had not kind of nudged me in that direction. So your mentor is really important. Make sure that you build a network of mentors, actually, who will be honest with you. You don't only need cheerleaders, you need people who will challenge you when you're too afraid to challenge yourself. So science is inherently collaborative. So going back to my dreadful first year of college, when things weren't going so well, and I thought that they should, eventually, what I had to do, and I felt like a total failure, but they had like a free tutoring center on campus, and I think they have this now, hopefully they have one here at UK. And I was best friends with everyone in there. By the end of the first semester, I was going in there on a daily basis, and I just had to kind of swallow my pride and let other students teach me what I should have known before coming to the university. But that was actually, that saved my career, I think, when I look back on it. Any questions or comments? I feel like I'm giving a high school graduation ceremony talk about what you should do.
Can we get you to put your mic a little bit down? Can you say it again? Mm-hmm. What is it she's supposed to do with her mic? Hello? What is she supposed to do with her mic?
I'm kind of sounding like Darth Vader, aren't I? Is that better?
Much better. Thank you.
I'm sorry about that. Heavy breathing and all of that. Okay, and then the last point that I have is, it kind of goes back to where we were talking originally. If you don't know quite where you're headed, don't panic. Take time to know who you are, and you know, as an experimental scientist, I would say you do that by experiment. You try a little of this, you try a little of that. A personal quick story that I would like to share is my niece started out, and she's still a student, she started out in a couple of different majors, thinking that's what she really wanted to do. And one of them, I won't say what they are, but one of them was a topic that she had talked a lot about when she was younger. About a year into it, she had what we call a come to Jesus moment. It was like, oh, you know, this isn't where my passion actually is. She discovered that actually what she really wanted to be was a veterinarian. And so she's going to veterinary school, and she's acing all the tests. And I think it takes some courage, you know, to do that, to accept who you are, but you have to learn who you are first. And I'm going to have a couple pointers on the very end of my presentation here to make you aware of some opportunities that help you get to know yourself a little bit better. But you need to know, you know, what makes you tick and where your passions are. And it's a learning process, and it possibly changes over your lifetime. I know for me it has. Okay, so one of the ways to get to know yourself better to achieve the networking requirement, and just quite frankly to have a good time, is to get involved in some internship program. How many of you have actually been involved in a research program that has not been at UK? All right. Okay, a few of you, which means that this is a good message to hone in on a little louder. I wish that they would have had these resources when I was an undergraduate. Let me tell you. The first is NASA internship programs. And let me digress just a minute and talk a little bit about NASA. NASA isn't just astronomers or astronauts. I work with so many different people in so many different fields, you wouldn't believe it. I didn't believe it at first. We have people who are experts in finance. They have to take care of a budget and make sure that we are on budget and on schedule. We have system engineers who look over our requirements, our technical requirements, figure out what tests we need to perform with the observatory to make sure that we're meeting our requirements. Is a telescope going like this, or is it steady like it's supposed to be? We have, there's chemists who work, there's biologists. We have a huge biology program at NASA Ames, actually, who are doing really cool things like studies of the effects of space travel on the human body. And every now and then they send out an email asking us to be volunteers and guinea pigs. Well, there was one that was really interesting. I was intrigued but decided against it. I should have overcome my fear and just did it, right? But it was asking people to be strapped down to a bed for, I think it was like 8 hours, and they tilted you, and they were looking, I don't know what it was. I can read the email to you. It had something to do with blood pressure effects, and you know, you couldn't get up and go, you know, you couldn't have a bio break. So that they had some workarounds, but it wasn't particularly appealing. So I opted out. So anyway, the internship program, it calls for many, like every single one of you would be qualified for one of these programs, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. And there's internships at all the NASA field centers. So NASA Ames is where I'm at in California, great place, San Francisco Bay Area. Armstrong down in the southern, near LA. And I won't read them all. There's, you know, Ohio, the Glenn Research Center, Goddard. That's a different that's the Goddard Institute for Space Studies in New York, and then the Goddard Space Flight Center, which is in Maryland. And I'm not going to read the rest, but you can see that. So these places have mentors who are willing to take on summer interns, people who want to come in the fall, and people who want to take off a whole semester or a whole year. There's a very flexible plan. So you ought to check it out on the webpage. On the right-hand side, I know less about this program, but it's an international program that NASA sponsors. You become an intern, your salary, you get a salary, your housing is covered. So every summer we got this massive crowds of people who come, and then we have dorms on site, and those get all filled. But it's a great opportunity, and I really, if you have an interest in working for NASA, just seeing what it's like, please apply. And shoot me an email. I'll give you my email address. Oh, right there it is, actually. To let me know, and know that you're interested in applying, and we can stay in touch. There's also a so-called NASA Pathways program. I only recently learned about this. We just recently hired a person through this program. What this is, it's kind of like an internship on steroids. They hire you, and you are an intern every summer for some period of time, multiple years. And at the end of that, if we're happy with you, and if you're happy with us, and if there is an opening, it's a way to convert you into a permanent civil servant at NASA. And a lot of people that I work with actually came into NASA under this program. And they started super young, and they can retire when they're like a ridiculously young age because they got started so early, because I think the pathways actually counts as part of your time at NASA. And then, of course, there's the National Science Foundation. Not that I want to speak for NSF, but I will. The Research Experiences for Undergraduates, so the REU program. Has anyone heard of the REU program? Okay, great. Well, I'm glad that you've heard of it, but I'm also glad that I'm sharing some new information with some of you. I ran an REU program when I was in Texas, at Texas Christian, and I can tell you these are wonderful programs. what they involve is going to another university and working for a summer with someone and doing research for that person. And again, there's a multitude of different topics: astronomy, physics, medical, chemistry, and they have a great website, and you can actually do a search by top research interest or by mentor, and so on and so forth. So, and it's the same deal. They pay you to be there. They make sure you've got the housing covered, and I think even medical is covered. You can read up the details, but it's awesome. It doesn't really cost you a dime. I think actually that's the end of what I wanted to talk about. Feel free to shoot me an email if you want to talk on the phone. If you just have a question you want me to answer to, I would be delighted to help be your mentor on the NASA side. So that's what I'm offering. If you're interested in a career at NASA, give me a call and let's see what we can do. Are there any? I'll open up the floor for questions now. I know we're probably a little, I don't know. What? Okay. Should I bring that up?
So it says, would you say NASA is a male-dominated program?
I would say that NASA still is a male-dominated program, absolutely. I was talking, I think, with Renee earlier today, and every now and then I, look around at a meeting and kind of do a head count. And many, many times I've been the only female in a room of 40 people, which is kind of shocking in this day and age. And I attribute some of it to the fact that there's a lot of engineers at NASA, and the engineering field seems to still have a pretty big gender gap compared to astronomy or even physics. So I think there's part of that. What I have also noticed, and again, we were kind of talking about this over our dinner, there's still a low number of women in positions like mine. I go to conferences, astronomy conferences, and I look around, and it's about 50-50 actually these days in terms of the gender breakout. But when you look at a higher level, people who are in management or senior science positions like myself, there is still, I could guess maybe, no more than 20% women, at that level. And I don't know if it's all those women that are walking around at these conferences haven't had time yet because they're not old enough to kind of get up the ladder, or if there's something else going on, and I think that's an eternal question a lot of people have done studies about, and I really am not qualified to say why, but as an observer, absolutely, it's a male-dominated field. So, yeah. Let's see, you in the back.
Thank you for talking with us today. Can you talk a little? You mentioned that it is difficult to ask for help, and I think that women, when we consider things like the imposter syndrome and just some natural tendencies, have a harder time with that, and have a hard time revealing that perhaps we don't know as much as others think we do, or that's our own perspective of ourselves. Do you have strategies for overcoming that?
Right. So to repeat the question in case the other side didn't hear about it, I'm not going to articulate it as well as you did, but what are the strategies for overcoming the inability to kind of be out there and to engage in the same way that our male colleagues engage in? There's this psychological issue called imposter syndrome, which is being talked about quite a lot these days, that a lot of women do suffer from. And basically what that means is, I don't feel worthy to be in the position that I'm in. How did I get here? Someone surely screwed up to let me advance this high. And I think a lot of people do suffer from that. What is the strategy? I don't know that I have a fast and true strategy, except what I try to do is shed chips off of my shoulder. And I think actually that was one point I kind of wanted to make earlier. As women, we can bring on a lot of troubles to ourselves, I think. And maybe I'm being really controversial and going to get, food thrown at me. But I do think sometimes, and I've seen this happen with some of my female colleagues, that it's a delicate balance. You don't want to wear such a big chip on your shoulder that you exaggerate every little thing. Because I've certainly seen men struggle with some of the things I've struggled with that I might have been tempted to attribute to a gender issue, right? So I think what I try to do, quite frankly, is rise above it and try to not dwell on the fact that I have a gender difference compared to everyone else in the room. And it's really difficult, but I kind of psych myself out. I'm just one of the guys. And sometimes what that means, and I know other women have mentioned this, sometimes you have to be louder, you have to be more articulate, and you have to be cool and calm compared to your colleagues, right? The male colleagues, to be heard. And I can't fix that problem, but it's certainly still there. But rise above it, I think. Yeah, now certainly there are things, and we probably don't have to even go into detail, there are some things you don't ignore, right? Let's just go into it. You don't ignore sexual harassment, right? You go straight to a manager and you deal with that. I'm talking about the lesser evils, being ignored, and this has happened to me, I will have something to add to the conversation, and kind of people talk over me, right? And then the guy next to me says roughly the same thing, and everyone thinks he's brilliant. So just keep fighting the fight and try to rise above that. And when that happens, I'm insistent. I just keep saying what I need to say until I'm acknowledged that I've been heard in most cases. I know, not a very satisfactory answer. Persistence would be my strategy. Let's see, I know that there was did you still have a question? Yeah, why don't you go?
To kind of go back to your male-dominated program a little bit, I don't know how long you've been at NASA, but have you seen maybe an evolution in maybe the way that you've been treated or accepted over the time that you've been there? It's still very much male-dominated. So, have you seen an improvement, I guess, from a woman's standpoint?
Okay, so the question is, has there been an improvement in my time at NASA in the way women are perceived and their roles? I would say I really haven't, unfortunately, seen an evolution in either direction. I think that the obstacles that I just kind of described are still there, and the problem is everyone has such a different, there's a wide range of personalities. Some personalities don't interact well with other personalities, and often it's really hard to understand what the source of the issue is, if there's a perceived issue of gender bias, right? I work with a very wide range of personality types. Some are abrasive, and it turns out sometimes I work better with those people. You kind of at least hear straight from them what they're, what's on their mind, and you can deal with that. But honestly, I don't see any change. But I've been at NASA for 6 years, so that's probably not long enough to really see a real evolution. Yeah. So yeah.
My brother went to FIT, and I was kind of interested in this for myself, but one of the biggest deterrents was that it was very male-dominant. I was curious if you had that same kind of experience.
Yeah, the question was about FIT and the female-to-male ratio. We used to joke about it. 1 to 10, I think, was the ratio when I was there, so maybe it's improved since then a little bit.
It was like 70-30 or something like that.
Yeah. The funny thing though, I never thought about it. It never even, I guess I was such a nerd and so focused on trying to improve my freshman year, right? I didn't really dwell on that. It seems like the awareness of being a female in a male-dominated culture occurred later in my life. Yeah. So we can talk offline if you would like to hear more about FIT. So, yeah. There were a question, I think, back there.
You stressed the importance of networking, and you also mentioned that it's really good to have research or summer research opportunities. Would you mind discussing with the ladies, like, when is the best time to apply for this? And because I mean there are shutoffs, but would you mind just, I guess, mentioning that to them so that they can think about this for the next summer semester?
A good question. All of these programs have very hard deadlines to get your application in. And I don't remember what the RU program is. Oh, you do.
I'm not faculty. RU deadlines tend to be in late January, early February in math. I don't know about other disciplines, but I'm guessing they're pretty similar. And like Math Club actually does like a let's talk about math RUs every year. And so your disciplines club may do something similar.
Okay, that's really good. And it's fairly aligned with the deadlines for the NASA internship programs. I think the deadline for this summer was March the 31st. And then there's a couple other deadlines coming up if you wanted to do the internship like in the fall. So, you know, take a semester off and do that. And the deadlines are very clearly written on the websites as well. If you can't remember that, it's just go. I think actually there's a big banner kind of at the top alerting it. But yeah, the springtime is, you know, between January and March, let's say, is the time you really need to be putting in those applications. And I would just say, you know, I can only speak for the NASA internship, but making contact with the mentor you want to work with is golden. It really puts a personal touch, and it lets me know that you're not just, well, you may be, but I don't know about, you know, shotgunning, you know, the whole, you know, canvassing all opportunities, that you really, really want to work with me, and that does make a difference.
We have another question.
Oh, very good. So you spoke earlier about the failures you had experienced. How did you keep that from discouraging you and persevere in your field? Yeah, I think it gets back to the very first bullet that I made. I probably wrote that thinking about my failures. You have to be absolutely focused on the end goal and absolutely dedicated to your vision. I won't talk about all of my failures here on the video, but if you'd like to hear about some of them, I'm happy to share some of them offline. I mean, some of them were pretty big. They were showstoppers. Let's just put it that way, okay? I was extremely, devastated when some of these things happened. But I saw them as a hurdle. And there's a quote, I wish I could remember it, something about it's not how many times you fall, it's how well you're able to pick yourself back up. And that's true. And every single one of you is going to have a devastating failure at some point in your life. It's human to do that. And realizing that, and realizing it doesn't make you, it doesn't mark you as a stupid person or a total failure. Like, just knowing that other people have had similar failures in life, famous people who have been extremely successful, and just knowing that inspires. And I think that's how I was able to proceed. And plus, I really wanted a PhD. I wanted to make it happen, and so that's how I got through it. This undisclosed failure of mine, or two or three. So, any other questions? Yeah.
I could sit and ask you questions. So I'm a junior faculty, and I don't have a real commitment to staying in academia forever, but there is that fear associated with the risk of leaving academia and sort of the comforts, even though it's stressful and competitive and challenging. There's a lot of security versus a private foundation or other positions or whatever, entrepreneurship or other things that may be out there. So when you made that transition, you applied for that position. Did you feel any of that, and was there
So the question is,
risk to take.
yeah, the question in summary was, when you're in a kind of in a safe place in your career, and there's an opportunity to step out of that safe zone, how do you muster up the courage to do it? I think if I could just sort of, summarize. I was you in that moment, right? I really struggled because I had to let go of my tenured position to go to SOFIA, and for the first year, that's a probationary period. So if they didn't like me, so it was scary, and I did struggle with the decision. Like a lot. I really struggled with it. And I think it came back to envisioning myself time traveling forward, not backward, and saying, are you going to look back and regret? Are you going to have any real regrets? And for me, I couldn't answer myself honestly without saying, yeah, this is an opportunity. I just got to see what's behind that door. And it was I was leaving a very secure place for a not secure place, right? And I was driven by the fear of what would happen if I didn't. Yeah.
So I'm graduating today, and I feel like there's that moment kind of like you had when you went to NASA, where you feel this intense pain, you don't know what to expect, you don't know how you're going to perform. All this pressure placed on you. How do you deal with that?
So you're getting ready to graduate in the now time frame, right? Yeah. Yeah. So you're faced with some of the same fears actually that you face in a career change, because for the past some years this has been your career, and now the next stage of your life is unfolding. You're not quite sure how it's going to unfold and where you're going to end up, and it is very scary. I would say calm down and see this time in your life as a wonderful, beautiful opportunity, because you will never ever be in this particular phase of your life ever again. You're young. You are, and I don't know anything about your life, but I would assume you're not married, you don't have children, you don't have all of the responsibilities that you'll likely have, in 10 years from now, and you can fail. This is the time you can fail and learn about yourself. So figure out the opportunity that is most interesting to you, and I don't know whether that is going on to grad school or getting a job, whatever it is, and view it as an experiment to learn more about yourself, because you have that time to be able to do that. Give yourself space is and it's hard when you are in that position. I remember being really scared, again, thinking everything I did was permanent. Just get rid of that silly binding notion, right? People have gone to work for NASA and then gone back to teach. It's much more fluid than we envision careers to be.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so that is all that we have time for today. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you.
This is for you as a thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so if you all are interested and want to hear more from Dr. Marcum, of course, go to the Sky Talk at 8 p.m., is it? 8 p.m. 8 p.m., yeah.
Room 155.
And?
And 3:30 p.m. tomorrow.
Awesome. So you all may be wondering now, this is our last meet and greet in April, what's next for this initiative? We are hoping that we can continue the IAmAWomanInSTEM for many years to come at UK. We really want it to continue on next semester and to keep doing these, keep having a mentoring program. But a lot of that depends on you all. So if you all would like, we are going to conduct focus groups afterwards. I know this is a really busy time. I know I'm stressing out myself for all the assignments I have to do. But if you all have some time to just answer a few questions, how your experience has been in the initiative, what you would like to see in years to come with the initiative, we'd be really appreciative of the time. So if you all could stick around, and if not, we hope to see you again next year, hopefully. So thank you.